called Summer Attire. We are now live and in living color.
Make sure you eat right.
Yeah.
Yes, our meetings are now live, so you can view everything live. Hello. Sorry, viewing audience.
Drinking water, ain't drinking no water, they, I ate a few pieces of chicken, but, not much rice, you know. Who was it? I want to incriminate you. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, that was chicken, chicken sets. Okay. Yeah, that's what chicken sets. That's what I got too. Yeah, chicken sets.
No, you got that version.
Nah, I must have got it. Yeah, that's what you go to the railroad.
No, you don't.
No, you said what one? No, that was a burger. I'm thinking you're talking about bandits because.
You can go there and get burgers and fries, cheaper than you.
We were talking about the road runner the other day, and I was telling her about the original road runner.
Oh, yeah.
That was the best, the genuine road.
Yeah. Where's Gene at? You see him? He retired. He's around.
I'm sure.
He's still working.
Still working.
He's still working.
Gene is your brother?
Yeah,
Okay.
What?
yeah, that's why I said, somebody, I know she knows.
He's still working 5 days a week.
Where's he, where?
That fabrication plant that used to right at Walmart that builds the things for the nuclear power plant.
Oh, yeah.
And he does cleanup and whatever else he can find to do and loves it. I'll tell me all that about it.
Yeah. So we were talking about those original road runners.
Yeah. At $2 a piece.
I didn't realize that. Oh. I have a fix. Okay. Right. 601.
Like to call to order the June 6, 2017 regular call board meeting. There's been appropriate public notification and there is confirmation of a quorum. We have 6 members in attendance. We will begin with our usual executive session. I'll entertain a motion to enter that executive session during which no legal personnel or contractual matters will occur.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we enter executive session.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. Got it, 6-0. We will return no later than 6:30. Thank you.
You already started?
I just thought it was fine.
always come in handy.
Entertain a motion to exit executive session during which no action was taken.
Madam Chair, make a motion to exit executive session.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick, thank you, Ms. Harrison. Those in favor of exiting executive session, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Move on, once again, welcome. The June 6th regular called meeting of Fairfield County's Board of Trustees, and we'll move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
All stand for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All remain standing for a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you.
We'll move to the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, second.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Any discussion there? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Those in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by raising the right hand. Got 7, thank you. Public comment.
Madam Chair, we have one public comment, but it's not who we usually have for public comment. So I don't know if we need to call and check on Dr. Mason or what, but we're pleased to have with us this evening Representative Mary Gail Douglas. And I think she is aware of the 5-minute time limit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members, and thank you for all that you do for us. At the last meeting that I attended, of course, we had some discussion about compensation for school board members and the local legislation that we enacted and brought to that. So I had some comments after the article appeared because the paper had called and wanted me to comment last week, and I said I will not do that until I do the courtesy of giving my comments to the school board members first. So I say that because they have not gotten those yet. But anyway, I just want to briefly share a letter that I've written. And it just says, allow me to respond to the issue of compensation for local school board members. Several years back, Senator Coleman and I were approached regarding local legislation for compensation for Fairfield County school board members. While I am not a big supporter of local legislation, we asked at that time to bring information back to us to review, consider, and submit for legislation. We gathered information about board compensation throughout the state. I supported the idea and continue to support the idea of some compensation to a certain level and a level within reason. It made sense to me that we offer some compensation for time invested and the cost of offering oneself for public service. It does cost an individual to serve in an elected position or in a voluntary position as far as that goes. It is particularly important that an incentive is in place to get and retain individuals who serve in what I think is the most important area of government in our community, and that is our policy-making board for education in Fairfield County. In February 2017, there were about board members, and it was Chairman Reed and Mr. Miller, along with Dr. Green, met Senator Fanning and me to discuss the issue further. In this discussion, Senator Fanning agreed to draft the document. During this meeting, I stressed the need to move with caution and the need to use good judgment and common sense as they move forward with the comments for board members to receive the compensation. And I trusted that. It was explained to me that school board meetings are once a month and now are streamlined and usually last no more than 1 hour. Other school functions attended by board members are those of the board member's choice. At the May board meeting, board member Mr. Fred presented a proposal in the amounts of $750 a month for the board chair and $700 for board members. It is my opinion that this is excessive. When asked how the amounts were arrived, the reply was, we have saved money from other areas and can move the money to this budget line item. It's my belief that a monthly amount of $350 for chair and $300 for other board members is more in line with compensation. $700 a month translates into $8,400 a year. Think about it. Many in our county work 2 jobs and their salary is not much more than $12,000 a year. It's difficult for me and for others that have contacted me to justify this amount just because there's money there to do it. I ask you, and I make a plea to you to reconsider that and do the right thing. And I thank you for your time. I do have a copy of this to share with you, just so that you can, if you need to go back over it, is there okay? Thank you again for your time, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and be a part of the discussion. And again, thank you for all y'all do.
That is all public comment we received.
Thank you. We'll move on in the agenda. Don't see presentations and recognitions at this point, so we'll move to the board minutes from May 16th, regular call board meeting, and May 22nd, budget work session.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the minutes from the May regular call board meeting and the budget workshop, providing I get a second on that.
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Fred. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Questions or discussion?
I'd like to state, as I have in the past, is that we need to be consistent in how we do the minutes. Whatever is, what you decide, I don't know how it's decided on what you put in the minutes versus, I know when you put a record, something for the record, but something to discuss, what, you know, to put in there what's been discussed doesn't seem to be consistent. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions or discussion, we'll move forward with the vote. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation to approve the May 16th regular call board meeting minutes as well as the May 22nd minutes, please signify by raising up a right hand. 5, opposition, 2. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, before he gives his report, I think one time he talked about, having a work session or spending some time discussing, the minutes. And, I do want the record to reflect that I voted against the minutes because I'm real concerned that it appears that we as a board is, we're not taking the minutes as serious as we should. Those minutes should be where if someone goes back and research them and look at the minutes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now, the minutes contain enough information about what happened to answer any concerns that might come up. that's the statement I want to record, Ms. Brown, but my question is there some opportunity? I don't think we can continue where we can, but it's not good that we continue to not have good conversation about things that are of concern to, board members, even if it's just one. So, is there an opportunity that we can seriously talk about the minutes and what should be reflected in the minutes that we can all agree on so that our minutes can, adequately reflect our minutes for future years?
I think we can,
Well, and I was writing that down, why don't we just add that to the next time we do have a work session, we can bring that forward as part of a point of discussion, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, first of all, let me take this opportunity to congratulate the administration and staff and students at Fairfield Central High School for putting on an outstanding graduation. An outstanding job. You know, I was in Boone's Barn, maybe next week, grabbed me a little something to eat one day. And a lady came up to me and said, I just want to tell you that was a superb graduation. My grandson graduated, and I want to tell you that it was just excellent. It was timely. The things that were said were very appropriate. It was not too long and very organized. And she said, I know a lot of times people just complain when things go wrong, but I wanted to take this time to tell you that something's going good. I said, well, ma'am, I can tell me that anytime you like. And so I think that's indicative of the perspective of most people that attended. And I would dare say that this is probably one of the most heavily attended graduations I think we've had since I've been here in my 5-year period. I mean, just in terms of looking at the audience, I mean, it appeared to be pretty packed. Just to recap, there were 181 graduates, over $8 million in scholarships awarded. This was fun. Yeah, 8 million. Yeah, over $8 million in scholarships awarded. And you know what's so interesting, Mr. Frick, obviously that figure has been increasing over the last several years, but the graduating class of 2018 has already made a promise to exceed that. And so I like that competitive spirit. And they said that they're going to surely exceed that considerably. So we will see. As I said, 71% of those students have been accepted to colleges and universities. And something we don't talk about enough, but I think we need to highlight as well. We have 4 students who have enlisted in the U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, or Air Force. And so we're very proud of those students that have made a decision to serve our country. And as a matter of fact, I received an invitation from a young man who is having a going away party this coming Friday, who is enlisted in the Air Force. And so I look forward to joining he and his family as he gets ready to depart to serve our nation. Finally, I've said this before, but I wanted to reiterate the ongoing teacher shortage, not only in South Carolina, but across this nation. And so we're going to have to be even more vigilant in our efforts to recruit and retain educators, because it is getting more and more difficult. As I shared with you, last year we had 4,800 people to leave the profession, only had about 1,800 to enter the profession through pre-service teacher program, and that figure is expected to get even worse on next year. And so as we continue to work to provide a world-class education, our struggles will likely continue as it relates to being able to find qualified educators. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
you had your microphone on the whole time.
I want to ditto your comments on the graduation and the pictures that I posted. Of course, you know, you and I know a lot of the same people, and had a lot of positive things to say. And when you said what we said, and you took the pictures and saw the number of people in the audience attending the graduation, it was actually remarkable. to see the excitement on the students was remarkable. So I want to commend and ask that you send it to the staff over at the high school as well as all the staff here that participated. It was one of the best that we've had, and I've been attending them for 16 years. I don't think I missed one. The thing that you mentioned about the teacher shortage, and I'm glad you hear Representative Douglas. When we went to the 2 days at the Capitol, we kept hearing the same thing about the teacher shortage. So I had a conversation with one of the state superintendent deputies regarding the teacher shortage. And here's my concern. She said she was going to take it back to the superintendent, but I hadn't heard back from her, so I'm going to email her because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm not going to drop it. We have students who gone through college, and they have did everything the curriculum have required them to do, but when they take the praxis, they're missing one part of that praxis, and they're not passing it. It has nothing to do with what they're teaching, and they won't allow those students to teach. But then we, as a state, will go out in the industry, and we'll pull in individuals who hadn't gone through, hadn't done student teaching, and we allow them to go in the classroom to get what we call alternative education requirements or alternative certificates or whatever it is we want to call it. What is the problem with going back and revisiting those folk who have done what's been required of them? Except missing something on the test that doesn't pertain to what they're going to be teaching. And in particular, we have a student right here in Fairfield County that taught in Richland 1, and they did not want to let her leave, but they had no choice. And she took when she took the test, she missed one part, and I think it had something to do with the literature, which we know that's culture. And if we tell the truth about it, we know it's culture. And they wouldn't let that child teach at all, but she was one of the best teachers, and she was at Alcorn, where a lot of teachers don't want to go. But he had to take her out of that school because she could not pass that one little piece on the test, but then they'll bring in a sub, and they'll put a sub in that class all year, or they'll go out in the industry and put in somebody who have not had any experience with teachers. And to me, they put themselves in a precarious position because we know teaching and dealing with other people's children is not easy. So that's something I'm going to be pursuing, and I'm going to be asking for your help on that, Representative Douglas, as well as yours, Superintendent Green, as well as the board. Because unless they can find some other reason why they shouldn't teach, why do we have a teacher shortage? If we have folk who have gone through the curriculum, and we're not allowing them to practice what they've gone to school to do. And that's just my pet peeve on that one, and I just hope you guys will support it as well, so we won't have to keep talking about we have a shortage of teachers, because we really don't. We're just making ourselves have a shortage. Thank you.
Good evening. For your approval, second reading of policy policy ADF school zones. There were no changes made after the first reading on last month.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve second reading of policy ADF school wells.
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. The superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the second and final reading for this policy, ADF school wellness. Any discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask if, are we following the policy as far as having, are we following the policy as far as having 60 minutes a day per student, as far as everybody?
I'm not familiar with what specific thing I'll let Dr. Edwards respond to that.
When you say 60 minutes, are you referring to the physical education requirement?
Yes, ma'am.
You are.
Okay, and another thing, you know, it looks like it's in there stating that, fundraisers can be something that you don't have to go by the policy. So part of the policy says you have to go by this, and then that counteracts it. You know, other statements in there. So I don't understand why one's counteracting the other. Why have it in there if you don't have to go by it?
And I'm not familiar with exactly what you're referring to, Ms. Hartman, but I think, and I don't know if this has changed, Dr. Edwards correct me if I'm not, but there were up to 30 exemptions that you could have as it relates to fundraisers that did not meet kind of the healthy snack requirement. And so there is a requirement per se, but there are multiple exemptions that you can exercise that fall outside the bounds of what they consider to be healthy snacks.
It just sort of sounds like it's saying, you know, you should set an example and do it the whole time, and then it turns around and says you can do these so many exemptions. So I just think that's counteracting what you're saying.
And you know, not to belabor the point, Ms. Altman, but I can just tell you the reason that the state really created a policy with exemption is because that's what the public demanded. And so, you know, if the state says that, well, you can never sell donuts, then parents weren't necessarily happy about that. And if you say you can never have candy, then parents weren't happy about that. And so, you know, the community said that they needed the latitude to make some decisions for themselves. And I understand that to a certain extent. I mean, you know, obviously I have 3 daughters myself, and I don't want to feed them donuts every day, but it's okay to have a donut every now and then. That's not going to be the end of the world. And so I think they've given school districts a latitude to make some common sense decisions as it relates to that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one question.
Sure.
Dr. Green, Dr. Evans, there are a lot of requirements in this policy. It's pretty lengthy. Who is the overseer to make sure that the things in it that we're doing them? I know some of the things were in the old policy, but who has the oversight over this?
The oversight will be our supervisor of food service, along with also our director of student services. So it is a collaborative effort.
But there's no outside entity.
Oh, no. No, there's not an outside entity. However, as you can see here, in this particular, school wellness policy, if you look on the first page, all of these fall under the USDA Child Nutrition Program. So at any given time, if and when we do receive a visit from the USDA or from our State Department of Education here in South Carolina, of course, we will have to follow the guidelines that are outlined in the National School Lunch Program.
I thought there was some conversation when our national, federal elected officials changed offices at the top level, that there was not as much emphasis on wellness, and that there was another policy that we had to implement by July 1st. Am I?
That this is it,
So who's saying that we had to implement it?
the USDA.
Okay, so they will monitor, so they're the ones that really have the oversight if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Okay. All right, thanks.
And just to follow up, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. McDaniel, you know, I suspect that, you know, the current administration is probably going to even relax these requirements even further. I mean, you know, based on everything that I'm kind of hearing coming out of Washington, there is a sentiment that they want these to be local decisions, and so it's not going to be a top-down approach. And even though, you know, Ms. Hartman indicated that there appears to be lots of latitude, I think as moving forward, there's going to be even greater latitude in terms of even what our cafeterias are allowed to serve and things of that nature. So I think that is going to even be more relaxed as the new administration begins to implement their vision.
All right, we've had a motion and a second and the discussion. So the superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the second and final reading for policy ADF, school wellness. Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. We got 7. Thank you.
The second item is the overnight field trip request for the cross-country team. They will be participating in a cross-country camp in Mills River, North Carolina. Students will depart on August the 4th and return on August the 6th. There will be 10 students and 2 chaperones attending. And for your information, the cost of the students, for the students will be $20, and the total cost of the field trip itself is $408.
Madam Chair, as a founding member of the Fairfield Central High School Griffins cross-country team, 1991, I proudly move that we approve this field trip.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Frigg and Ms. Harrison. Any questions or discussion?
Sounds like Mr. Frick might need to stand
I will disclose that the second generation participates with the team. She told me earlier she wasn't going to run cross-country, but I don't know. There was some fundraising for this trip, is that correct? Are you aware?
I am aware of that.
I think the trip is probably paid for by that fundraising, is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You know how much about that fundraising too?
I contributed to that fundraising. I told you I'm proud to be.
Are you chaperoning the trip, Mr. Frigg?
I'm not planning on chaperoning the trip. I hope they have a good time and get a lot of exercise.
Any other discussion? Those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the overnight out-of-state field trip request from Fairfield Central High for the cross-country camp, signify by raising of the right hand. We've got 7. Thank you.
Good evening. Under Operations and Finance, the first item is the third reading of the fiscal year 17-18 budget. The recommendation, the superintendent is recommending board approval of the third reading of the 17-18 budget in the amount of $38,772,653 and approval of the attached budget resolution that will be sent to the county.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve third reading of the FY 17-18 budget and budget resolution.
Madam Chair, I second.
No, that was it. Thank you, Mr. Frick and Pastor Jackson. Questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, I saw some blurb today that the Senate has passed a budget. I know we still got to wait for the governor to sign it. The numbers for the funding that we talked about at the budget workshop and other, do we know what those numbers are? Are those in line sort of with what we were anticipating?
I don't know specifically for our district. I've seen overall figures for all of the districts around the state, but I think they wait until everything is finalized before they break it down for each district.
I guess one of the questions might be their student costs and change.
The final version I believe they voted on was, it was $25 more maybe than the House version per student. And of course, that doesn't mean that we get $25 more because it's $25 more overall, but the district has to fund a portion of that. So I think I know what we had was the House version, so, we're looking at less than $25 per student in the final version that we would actually get from the state.
I'm sure we may have someone in the room who has extremely current information if we allow them to address, I don't know.
Sir? Is it okay? This is the conference committee that came to us today, and it was, the student cost would be raised $75 per student to the total of $24.25. The House version was $2,400, but it increased by $25 that you were talking about. So the total amount of increase was $75 a student.
Can I ask you one more question? It's not difficult, Representative Douglas, I'm thinking. What about the retirement?
That's what I was like.
What, do you know what the decision was on retirement?
The retirement, and of course, we left today with some kinks on the Senate side, because they were taking issue with some of the conference committee's work. So what we left thinking today was that 1% of the 2% retirement increase for all employers is paid for by the state employees. Now, local governments will pitch in, and theirs won't, they won't have the amount of money that the school districts will be getting. But anyway, so they'll have to pitch in some money for that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Representative Douglas, for your assistance here. Anybody else? Hearing none, we have the third reading. This is the final reading. The superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the third reading for the FY 17-18 budget in the amount of $38,772,653, as well as the approval of the attached budget resolution that will be sent to the county. Those in favor signify by raising of your right hand. We've got 5, opposition 2. Thank you.
I'd like to put on the record that when board members request something that they're questioning on the budget, I feel like board members should be able to get that information. Therefore, that's why I'm voting against it.
The next item in operations and finance is a tax anticipation note resolution. The superintendent recommends approval of a tax anticipation note not to exceed $5 million.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve tax anticipation note not to exceed $5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Frick and Ms. Harrison. There's been a motion and a second, so it's open for discussion or questions.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask what the fund balance is currently.
As of last year, it was about $9.3 million.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
I said, as of last year, it was $9.3 million. Now, we hadn't finalized everything for this school year, obviously, since the year isn't over.
What do you anticipate to be?
We may actually send about 700,000, maybe have a surplus of about 700,000.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Of course, I certainly understand why we do TANs, and I do this every year, and I'm going to do it again. I look forward to the day when we not do a TAN, but I certainly understand even with $9 million in a fund balance, why it's just not feasible to use that whole amount of money. I understand that. I don't like it, but I understand it. And I do see that this is up a little bit from last year, but I do want to point out we're still below where we were in 15, 14, 13, 12, and 11. So I think while we're up a little bit, I think we are still improving on that. Wasn't really a question, I just want to say that. Thanks, sir.
And Madam Chair, I'm gonna respectfully disagree with my colleague over there, whom I do respect. The money that's generated for school districts and children should be spent in that school year on those children. And I know Dr. Green will say that there was nothing they didn't get, but I totally disagree with that. And raising money for our children and saving it for a rainy day or whatever is not the intent. And if you understand how a TAN works, the reason you do the TAN is because the tax dollars doesn't come in till January, but your fiscal year for your school district start in July. So I just wish we keep on spending as much as we spending on our babies. I don't care if we spend it all up, as long as they're getting a good education. Thank you.
question or discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, the superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the tax anticipation note to TAN not to exceed $5 million. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. We've got 7. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For your approval under Human Resources, item 1 are certified resignations and terminations, where the superintendent recommends board approval for resignations and terminations for certified educators effective at the conclusion of 16-17 academic year. That's, all those names are included in exhibits 1A and 1B.
Are you making a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the certified resignation termination in Exhibit A1.
Is that for suitable replacement?
This is just A1, that's why I think that you
1A is educators, yeah.
We have 2 of those that aren't yet.
Is that with the suitable
I
replacement?
apologize. I was looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Hartman, for catching that. What I meant was in 1A, pending suitable replacement.
And again, I second.
We have a motion and a second. Superintendent's recommendations, the board approve resignations, terminations for certified educators. Motion has been made that recommendation be approved, considering only when a suitable replacement has been found. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 7. Thank you.
Next are certified recommendations, where the superintendent recommends the board approve recommendations for certified staff for fiscal year 2017-28.
Okay, we need to do 1B next. We didn't do those together, sorry.
My apologies.
Two administrators.
Madam Chair, make a motion, we approve resignations and terminations in Exhibit 1B.
Thank you, Mr. Frick, Pastor Jackson. The motion and second have been made that the board approve resignations, terminations for certified educators to include certified administrators in Exhibit 1B. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand.
With the suitable replacement.
That's 9. Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. We've got 4. Opposition. 2. Abstention. 1. Thank you.
Madam Chair, not to discuss particularly, but it's talking around the questions. We hold teachers with, didn't find a suitable replacement when it comes to the leaders of the school. And depending on when we find a suitable replacement at the schools, well, let me back up. Do the principals sign contracts?
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to the administrators, we allowing them to leave. And depending on when we find someone, the school could be done more harm by us not having a teacher than a principal. So what is our rationale?
And so, that's a very good question, Ms. McDaniel. What I was probably saying, and obviously it's the board's prerogative how you want to proceed. As I explained to the board, in these 2 administrative vacancies, we probably have somewhere in excess of 60 applicants. And so, the likelihood that you can effectively replace a principal or an administrator is much different than if we were trying to replace a 6th grade math teacher or kindergarten teacher. And So the difficulty in terms of replacing those individuals is obviously much different. And so that's why it is much more of a difficult situation to replace a teacher than it is to replace a principal, for example.
Okay, well, with that being said, since it's early in the year, if even though we said finding a suitable replacement, those two areas are not that difficult. So if those individuals have other jobs pending, and depending on why they wanna leave, then could they not be treated the same way?
And you got lost. What those individuals are you referring
There
to?
were two on that list. They were teachers. Well, we let the administrators go, but there were two teachers, I'm gonna say teachers for lack of saying, but both positions are, that, we're not allowed to leave until we name the person, unless you was planning on letting them go since you think that maybe you're gonna have someone.
Yeah, so what I said is I have absolutely no doubt that they will be released. I have
So
no
they
doubt.
are waiting to sign a contract on us releasing them, even though we said finding a suitable replacement, you won't try to hold them.
No, we're not gonna hold them because I know we will get a replacement for the
Okay,
teachers.
all right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the recommendations.
For your approval this evening, superintendent recommends board approval for certified recommendations for 27-18 school year, exhibit 2.
Madam Chair, make a motion, we approve certified recommendations in Exhibit 2A.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the certified staff members in Exhibit 2A. All those in favor signify by raising their right hand. We've got 7. Thank you. We'll move on to the updates and announcements. Of particular note there, the South Carolina School Board Association School Law Conference is August 19 and 20, and since we will not meet again before the hotel block opens. It's the recommendation that if you'll get your request for that law conference to Ms. Brown tonight, we can have those ready when the block opens on 6/26. I've collected a few, but however you'd like to submit those, but just know that that block will open prior to our next meeting. So we recommend getting those to Ms. Brown as soon as possible so that just maybe get into the host hotel.
Madam Chair, in that same vein, that's one of the committees I serve on the board. So if y'all have any ideas, we're trying to figure out what it is we can do to, so that the school board members can have those rooms, because what's happening, the school boards are calling, and when they get in, they are taking all of the rooms. And so by the time Ms. Brown or whoever else look up and get through, then there are no rooms. So one of the things that we were offering up is that when we secure the rooms, they have to be a deposit paid. And so I just want to get some feedback from you all, because there were some folk who were saying, well, we think that might be too harsh. I said, well, it's even harsher, that they're taking the rooms and then they're releasing them right before the cancellation date. And then when we go there, they have all these open rooms, but then we have to be staying, places, not within the host hotel. So if y'all have any ideas or anything that,
My recommendation on that, and I think I said that to maybe one of the folks there for the School Board Association, is I don't understand why they would be allowed to reserve more rooms than there are board members. If the school board, we've got 7, Dr. Green goes, we don't need more than 8 rooms. I don't understand why school boards that have 7 members are reserving 20 rooms. So I think if each school district was actually allowed to have numbers that were appropriate with their boards plus superintendent, then I don't know that there would be a problem.
I didn't realize that was a problem, so I'm glad you said that, because they didn't mention that. What the thing they mentioned was, say for instance, if Ms. Brown called and reserved 7 rooms for us, and then 4 of us decided that we're not gonna go after the cancellation date, so that means the people who are staying at the overflow hotel can't get in because it's past the, well, not necessarily cancellation date, but the date that you can.
Refund.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, we're still even trying to figure out what we can do, and even if you have any ideas, let me know.
Don't make us call it, because it locks up the phone line. Let us get the registration online. Let us book everything online, then it's fair. Because if you call from Richland County, somebody else is calling from Lexington, that line is busy until they free up. And then, like she said, once I get through, there's no more rooms. They put us no rooms. So versus other conferences, they let us register you online, and until you pay your registration fee, they don't even give you access to the hotel.
Okay,
So,
okay,
So
all right.
deposit is a good idea too.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'll take that back, thank you. And if you think of anything else, Ms. Brown, or any of you all?
And yeah, like I said, I think it was limiting the number of rooms.
Yeah, I like that too, yeah. Okay, all right, thank y'all.
I was given a letter, Ms. McDaniel, and this is something that you won, school district, won the South Carolina School Board Association Policy Services drawing for a year, school board net, and I don't think we're a member of that currently. You know, it's, and I'm sure they probably use that to entice people to become members of it. If we accept it, then the yearly maintenance fee of $2,360 would be waived. However, of course, at the end of the 17-18 school year, it would be picked up again. First of all, Ms. McDaniel, or Ms. Brown, can you explain what that even is?
if I'm thinking correctly, it's a competitor of Board Dogs.
Okay, okay. So that's something that we already purchased.
Still not with the money.
Okay. So, okay, yeah, I mean, it's a competitor to Board Docs, I don't
You
think.
can graciously decline it from me, if you don't mind.
Okay, so we're just, it's okay to decline this?
Mhm.
Okay, I will write that on it and give it back. So,
Thank you, Madam
just
Chair.
make sure that we dealt with that. Again, make sure you get your forms for that law conference sooner than later. The board meeting calendar is next, and that will require a motion and second vote discussion on that one. The recommendation is that the board approve the board meeting schedule for 17-18 school year.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve the board meeting schedule for the 17-18 school year.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick and Ms. Harrison. Discussion?
Because I don't think this is out there, and there's been some discussion that we are now suddenly going to ramp up the number of meetings we're going to have. I do want to clarify, so everyone knows this does keep us at one meeting per month.
Right, and then we can certainly add in any other, but the board policy is one meeting, third Tuesday. We can add as many as we want per month. Thank you. Hearing no further questions or discussion, again, recommendation is that the board approve the meeting schedule for 2017-18. Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. We've got 7. Thank you. We'll move on to the board compensation policy. This will be the second and final reading for the revision of board policy BID, board compensation.
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve second and final reading of policy BID, the board compensation policy.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick, Ms. Harrison. Discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I received, not necessarily directly to me, but through some social media outlets, some comments about this, and I do want to clarify a couple things. And I do very much respect and appreciate Representative Douglas being here today, and I certainly respect her point of view in this. First of all, I want to correct something that was published in the news article about this. The proposal is $750 a month, and $700 per month for board members, for a total of board members of $8,400 annually, as was correctly stated. The initial article I read, it was a little confusing. I think at one point it says monthly, but then it starts talking about meeting. We are not trying to get $700 per meeting. There is no intent to have 3-4 meetings a month. That is obviously limited by our policy, as we've just discussed, and that's why I wanted to clarify that our proposed meeting schedule for next year is the same. But it really has no effect. What we're talking about is a monthly stipend. I do want to talk about one thing that was discussed about why we're doing this. This is not just simply because we have money in the bank and are able to do it. We are able to do it because we do have the money in the budget. The reason why we are doing it, and of course, this was not my decision alone. We had a committee who formulated this. We've worked over almost 2 years looking at this, studying this, and coming up with a proposal. First and foremost, I do want to clarify this. Obviously, it's not our legislative delegation who's come up with this number. What this was is there was a local law that prevented us from receiving anything more than the stipend we currently receive. And I do want to clarify, it is not a completely unpaid position already. We are allowed a stipend and travel pay. Some of us who live on the other side of the trees don't send in the travel pay, but there are some of us who come from far across this 600 square mile county to be here. So that is being eliminated with this. You receive one payment per month for your services. Any other trips that you made for which you might have received compensation for traveling to graduation, whatnot, any other events in the district is eliminated. The reason why we came up with the number that we did, as I stated in my PowerPoint presentation at the last meeting, was that this is in line with compensation for other municipalities, understanding we're not a municipality, but municipalities that have budgets similar to ours. Also in comparison to school districts around us, looking at Richland 1, Richland 2, Newberry, I believe in Lexington 5, I don't have a PowerPoint in front of me, but there were several surrounding districts that pay comparable, if not more, than what we're talking about here. Again, I want to emphasize this is revenue neutral. It is not adding any more money to the budget. It is a reallocation of funds that are already allocated to the school board. These are funds that are not coming out of the classroom. They are not taking away from any teachers or any instructional materials. So it is simply a reallocation to ensure that we are, the board, whomever it is, and of course, none of us are going to be here forever, but whomever is on this board is compensated adequately, and I would say fairly, based on the information that we researched to come up with the number that we did, to ensure that we continue quality leadership. That, and no disrespect to previous members, we've had plenty of good members on this board who receive the compensation that we receive. But that doesn't mean that that's what we should always do. I was researching various boards throughout the county, and it seems like, aside from boards that are appointed by county council, this is about the only one that receives the minimum compensation that we receive. So I think in fairness, it should be a position that's compensated to the degree that we're talking about. I certainly understand and respect people's positions who think otherwise. I'm just simply stating my personal opinion why I support it and think that it's appropriate. And I asked folks to respect that position as well. So with that, we'll be voting in favor of it, and thank you.
Any other question or discussion?
Madam Chair. Of course, you might be remiss if I didn't say that. And, but I think, my colleague and friend over there, Mr. Frick, made a good, point. But I want to clarify that, and I'm going to use the word mean spirit again. And that's what I consider it, and anybody who disagree, they got a right to disagree. But when we went from an appointed school board to an elected school board, that language of being compensated with, to the same amount as boards and commissions should have been removed from the law, because the board of directors for Fairfield County School District was no longer appointed. They were elected. So in that respect, that's an error that was long time overdue for being corrected. I abstained from voting at the last meeting because of other reasons. You know, you know, some might say I'm living in the past, and that's my right, that's where I want to live at for the moment. But I abstained from it because it should have been corrected. I've been on this board 16 years, and I think myself, and as Mr. Frick stated this time after conversation before, that we've had some very, very good board members who worked hard in spite of the fact that they were not getting paid. And the compensation should have nothing to do with how much the budget is. And at this point, should have nothing to do with other boards or commission. The compensation ought to be because we are elected officials, elected by the same citizenry as Fairfield County Council. And based on the information that was provided, we still only asking for half of what they're asking for. And the fact that we only meet once a month does not mean that we only gonna be once a month, because there are times that we do meet more than once a month. So, in fairness to us as elected officials, not a municipality, and not as municipalities, but as elected officials, just like any other, we should be compensated for the hard work that we do. And we do work hard, every last one of us on this board. And no disrespect, Representative Douglas, but don't you all get paid to serve in the legislature? Okay, so all elected officials mostly get paid. And just because I didn't vote for it, when it comes to sticking together and believing in what I believe in, one of the things I think school boards in the state of South Carolina don't do is stick together enough. And just because I didn't vote on it, I still support it, and I think that the justification is long, long overdue. And I'm going to abstain tonight for other reasons, as I shared with my good friend Mr. Henry right here. But I don't disagree with it, and I support it, and it is long, 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 long overdue. And I wish I could go back and get all of my other members who served and pay them.
We're not making it retroactive.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I have a comment in the form of a question. As I understand the proposal that we have, calls for compensation monthly, right? It doesn't have anything to do with meetings. Am I right about it?
Right.
So that if there is a necessity for us to meet more than once, that's not gonna affect the compensation. Is that right? Okay, thank you very much.
Further discussion or questions? And I suppose I'd be remiss to say that if anyone of the board is, opposed to receiving the compensation, they can certainly turn it down. That would be their option, and their certainly prerogative to do so. So that's always an option. Nobody's forcing it on you.
I said one last thing too, that,
Here we go again.
You probably raised the question to come up.
I knew I should have kept my mouth shut.
No, I'm not saying anything about that. I just wanted to mention that I did receive phone calls as well. And the phone calls I received, actually, they laughed at me for not voting for it because they believe, the folk in my district, my constituents, believe that it is long overdue. Now, one thing they didn't like is, the article that we had about the budget. So I'm asking next year that we kind of try to sit down and see how we can come up with a good way of communicating with Dr. Green, so we can have good, healthy discussion on the budget and not, have our meeting, scrutinized in the newspaper the way it was.
And I think that's a good point, Ms. McDaniel, and why, like I said earlier, and I was making some notes there, I think, we normally have a work session in December. So at that time, let's, I hate to table stuff to December, and we may have something come up before then, and we hope, hope there's no emergency. But for that session, let's talk about it and really create, a healthy discussion of how we want to handle that in April or May next year. But I totally agree.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I also saw some things on social media, just like my good friend here, and it was very hurtful to me anyway, because I know my purpose of being on the board, and it's not just to get paid. But I did receive a lot of good calls from a lot of people, not even in my district, saying that it's well deserved. So I thought that was, real sweet of them to even just call me. They're not even in my district to say, y'all deserve that. And it's not just being here for 2 hours. We work all the time. I have received so many calls this week, and Dr. Green probably get tired of me calling him, and Henry probably get tired of me calling him. But I'm at work, and I'm self-employed, and it's real difficult for me to answer to. Sometimes I actually forget about the other phone, but I do try to call back and answer questions and do whatever I can. And it can get a little overwhelming sometimes, so it's not just being here 2 hours, 1 day a month. We work all day long. I even work on the weekend, because I get calls all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead with, we have an appropriate motions for the, we have an appropriate motion in second. This is the second and final reading for the revision of this board policy, BID, board compensation. I'd like to, again, thank the ad hoc committee for their work. Like Ms. Frick said, it's been ongoing for about 2 years. And we've had appropriate discussion and questions. Those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. Got 5. Opposed? 1. Opposition? Abstention? All right, 1. Thank you. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fred. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. Those in favor signify by raising the right hand.
You got a good knowledge to it, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.